frantic action over in the Bundesliga, but one of these three clubs will be bottom of the table coming at you at the end of this weekend's action. Will it be Gladbach, Mainz, or will it be Wolfsburg? Today, we find out. Hi folks, my name is Dirk and this is Blackburn Overseas. That's right, your non-stop shop for Bundesliga action. And today we're going to predict match number 7, that's right, over in the Bundesliga. So I'm going to need your help. Do me a massive old favour here and hit the old subscribe if you're new. And also, can we get you a like target of just 30 likes? Can you do that? That'd be absolutely amazing. So sit tight, guys and girls. We're going to get into the hot seat and get on with the show. Okay, let's take a look back at the last round of matches. These are the results. And these were my predictions. Here is how you guys did in the prediction league. And a quick look at the updated tables should be on the screen now. Alright then folks, heading into match number 7 in the Bundesliga we go, and we've got a stacked out fixture list, including a big one from our boys. As we head there, first and foremost is the Alder Alten Forsterei as Union Berlin take on my boys Mönchengladbach. That's right, still looking for a new first team coach. There are rumours banding around, but nothing confirmed at this moment. Union Berlin, though, sitting 13th with 7 points to the name. Just the one win in the last 5 matches. Against Mönchengladbach, just one defeat in the last 4 themselves, but one win also most recently in the last 6. That one win was a friendly, so let's not look too much into that one. But coming into this on recent Bundesliga form, Union Berlin on the back of that 2-0 loss to Leverkusen most recently, and makes it back-to-back games without a win. Back-to-back games also without a goal for Union Berlin as they hit a bit of a bumpy patch themselves. As for Mönchengladbach, been recently better performances, but still no wins heading into this one on the back of a 0-0 scoreline themselves against Freiburg. Still yet to get a win under this new transition from old coach to new coach, but can they get it right this time around against Berlin? Now, these two clubs have played 13 times since 2010, 6 wins for Berlin, 4 wins for Mönchengladbach. There's been 3 draws between the two sides. They last played over at Berlin. It was a 2-1 win for my boys Mönchengladbach back in February 2025. Mönchengladbach actually did the double over Union Berlin with a win over both at their home place and, of course, on the road at the Alder Alten Forsterei. The bookies, though, coming into this, and we're going to introduce Bob the bookie with his latest odds on this match. Alright, that's right, kicking it all off on Friday night. We have Union Berlin taking on Mönchengladbach over at the capital, and we do see Berlin at 6-5. They are favourites. Mönchengladbach still searching for a valuable win. 11-5 can be your visitors and your team there, Dirky boy. And 23-10 is the draw. Ooh, it's a difficult to call this one in the opening game this weekend in the Bundesliga. So with, of course, those bookies odds in mind and, of course, the recent run of events, I am going to back Borussia Mönchengladbach for the first victory. They might even have that new manager bounce before this game takes place this coming Friday night. That's right. Let's go to Mainz next, though, as they take on Leverkusen. That's coming at you at the Miwa Arena. Bo Henriksen's Mainz sits 16th right now with the 4 points to them. 2 wins, 2 defeats in the last 4 matches, both competitively and not. They're taking on Kasper Hulsmann's Leverkusen, who are unbeaten in at least the last 6, pick up 3 wins and 3 draws to boot. Mainz, though, coming into this on the back of that 4-0 heavy defeat by Hamburg. That was, of course, pre-international break. The last home match was a cheeky 2-0 loss to Dortmund, goodness gracious me, to make it, what are we looking at, 2 defeats on the spin in the Bundesliga. However, Leverkusen coming into this on the back of that 2-0 win over Union Berlin. That was at the Bay Arena pre-international break as well. Now, they are going to lock horns for what will be the 40th time since 2004. 12 wins for Mainz, 21 wins for Leverkusen. There's been 6 draws between the two sides. The last time they played at this venue, resulting in a 2-2 scoreline back in May 2025. Leverkusen are actually unbeaten against Mainz over the last 4 with the 3 wins and the 1 draw. But what does the bookies think about this match as we head closer to the kickoff? Okay, coming at you with Mainz, we have 9-5, your host, 16-11 as your high-flying Bayer Leverkusen. The draw is at 23-10. Back to you. Appreciate that, Bob. Of course, I am also going to go with a 2-0 win for Bayer Leverkusen on the road to continue their unbeaten streak right now and add another 3 points to the coffers. Let's go to Leipzig as they take on Hamburg, also on the 18th of October. Ole Werner's Leipzig are 3rd in the table, 13 points for them. They're unbeaten in at least the last 5 matches. Taking on Hamburg side of the Merlin Polzin, unbeaten in the last 3. They sit 9th right now as they adjust to life back in the top flight, of course. Coming into this, though, Leipzig on the back of that score draw away to Dortmund. That was back on their 4th of October. The last home match was a 3-1 win over Köln, of course, hoping to make it 3 wins on the bounce in their own backyard. They're taking on Hamburg side, who, of course, got a bit of form themselves right now. 3 matches unbeaten, back-to-back home wins, of course. The last match on the road, though, was only a 0-0 scoreline back on the 28th of September. Now, coming into this, they've only played 6 times since 2016. 4 wins for Leipzig, 1 win for
for Hamburg. There's been one draw between the two sides. Now, coming into this, the bookies have their own take. What do they think?
RB Leipzig are cruising indeed. 9-4, nailed on for the victory in this one against New Boys Hamburg SV. 11-2 for those guys. They're also on a good bit of form right now. They might squeeze a shock result here, but ultimately 50-4 is the draw if you're not too sure which way you want to go.
Appreciate that. And of course, the last time that these two sides did play was back in the second round of the DFB Pokal back in October 2022, and it did result in a 4-0 win for Leipzig. Am I going to go that much? No, but I do think Leipzig will win this one. I'm going to go with a 3-1 win, which of course will boost Leipzig's hopes and put a bit of a dent in Hamburg's recent revival. Let's go to Wolfsburg now as they take on Stuttgart. That's coming at you the Volkswagen Arena. Paul Simonis is in charge at Wolfsburg, but they're winless in the last 5, all the way down to 15th right now, which is the 5 points all campaign. Stuttgart, though, under Sebastian Hoeneß, they've just lost once in the last 5. They do sit 4th with 12 points coming at you right here, right now. Now, Wolfsburg are on the back of that 3-1 loss to Augsburg pre-international break. Their last home match was a 1-0 loss to Leipzig, and they are winless since they beat Heidenheim on match number 1 over in Heidenheim. As for the opposition, Stuttgart are on the back of also a 1-0 win over Heidenheim. That was the last match, of course, but it's actually been three wins on the bounce for Stuttgart in the Bundesliga, beating St. Pauli, beating Köln, and most recently beating Heidenheim to make it 3 wins on the bounce. Now, they've taken on Wolfsburg 53 times since 1997. We have 23 wins for Wolfsburg, 22 wins for Stuttgart. There's been 8 draws, so quite tight over the history books. And coming into this, they last played at Wolfsburg. It was a 2-2 draw way back in September 2024. In fact, very close games between these two sides. A lot of drama, a lot of goals, a lot of action. But what about the bookies? What do they think is coming at you this coming match day?
All right, let's go to the Miwa Arena. All right, Wolfsburg up next. We've got them at 30-8 for the W here. We have 16-11 is your away win. And of course, 13-5 is the draw. It's tight to call between these two.
Tight one could go either way, but I've got to back Stuttgart. Stuttgart look the real deal. Actually, I've only gone for a point here. 1-1 on the road, which kind of is contrary to the recent form. There's only been one draw between these two sides over the last 6. But I've got to stick to my gut. My gut says a draw. Let's go to Heidenheim now as they take on Bremen. Coming out to the Volta Arena. Heidenheim under Frank Schmidt sit 18th right now with just the 3 points. They've got 1 win in the last 4 matches. Up against Bremen under Horst Stefan, 2 wins at the last 6 matches. They sit 12th with 7 points, of course. Now, they last played coming into this. Heidenheim did pick up a loss against Stuttgart, but the last home match was a 2-1 win over Augsburg. Maybe trying to continue that form when they take on a Bremen side, who did pick up a cheeky little 1-0 win over St. Pauli pre-international break. Now, coming into this, they have played 10 times since 2011. We've got 4 wins for Heidenheim, 3 wins for Bremen. There's been 3 draws between the two sides. They last played at this venue back in May 2025, towards the back end of the season, if not the back end of the season. It was a 4-1 win for Bremen, goodness gracious me. But when you look back at the history books over the last 5 or 6 between these two sides, Heidenheim have only lost once in the last 5 between these two. So it does seem to be a typically more favourable result for Heidenheim. But what about the bookies? What are they thinking about this game?
All right, you got 2-1 there. You're Heidenheim at this one. They're, of course, struggling for form up against a Werder Bremen side who just don't know really what we're doing with these guys. We've got 13-10, your away side. 6-2, scrap that. 5-2 is your draw between these two guys in the Bundesliga this weekend.
And with all that being said, I'm going to go with a score draw between these two sides. I think it's probably a better point for Werder Bremen at this stage of the season. I think Heidenheim need to start making some wins to give themselves a big old boost to see if they can stick around in the top flight for another year. Let's go to Köln now as they take on Augsburg, coming at you at the Rhein Energy Stadion. Köln under Lukas Kwasnic. 6-6 right now, 10 points for them, but just 1 win in the last 4 matches. Up against the Augsburg side and the Sandro Wagner back-to-back games without a loss, they sit 14th with 6 points, of course. Now, coming into this, Köln did beat Hoffenheim last time around. That's back on the 3rd of October to make it a massive win for them, which, of course, ended a big streak of games without a W. As for their opposition, Augsburg on the back of that 3-1 win over Wolfsburg in the Bundesliga to give themselves also a big boost in the grand scheme of things. Now, they have played 25 times, these two clubs, since 2006, but it's been 8 wins apiece and 9 draws, quite evenly Steven between these two sides, with the last couple of games being back-to-back 1-1 scorelines, both at Augsburg and at Köln, of course. But what does that make for the bookies? Do they have different opinion? Let's see.
All right, high-flying Köln, of course, can be bought at 11-10 for the W on this one. We have 12-5, your Augsburg, who are struggling down the foot end of the table, and 14-5 is the draw, of course, coming at you this Wochenende.
does feel like a draw, but I'm going to go with Köln here. 2-1 winners for them. They're flying high at the top of the table. They need another result, and I think they should get the 3 points against the Augsburg side, who are also struggling right now. And then we go to Die Klassiker, happening at the Allianz Arena. That's right, Bayern München under Vinny Company, top of the pops. 18 points for them. They've won 6 of them out, if not more than that. Up against the Dortmund side of Nico Kovac, who are second. 14 points. What a game we're going to have here over at the Allianz Arena. Coming into this, Bayern, though, on the back of that 3-0 win over Frankfurt to make it back-to-back away wins, of course, beating Paphos in the Champions League. Their last home match was a convincing 4-0 win over Bremen. In fact, they've won, what we're looking at, the last 3 home matches. I've got 12 goals scored in the last 3 for the current table toppers. As for Dortmund, they're coming into this on the back of that 1-1 scoreline at home to Leipzig. The last away match was a 2-0 win over the rivals, Mainz, of course. And the previous form between these two sides, they have played 84 times since 1992. 45 wins for Bayern. There's been 20 wins for Dortmund. There's been 19 draws. And the last time they played at the Allianz Arena, it was a 2-2 score. In fact, last season, back-to-back draws between these two sides. And if we look back at the last 3, Dortmund are unbeaten, of course, with 1 win and a couple of draws as well. But the bookies, they got their own take, and I think I know which way they're going.
Wow, it's the one we've all been waiting for. It's El Clasico, Die Klassiker. 3-1 is your Bayern. Dortmund, who are doing good under the coach there, 13-2. The draw is at 9-2. But is there anything else against a home win? Well, I don't know. I'm not going to put that onto you. No pressure, Dirk. You got to get this one right.
That's right. Of course, I'm also leaning in favour of the bookies. I'm going to go with a goal fest on this Die Klassiker. 6 goals in it, 4-2 winners in favour of Bayern München. Into the final couple we go, and they are into Sunday action. Of course, Freiburg against Frankfurt in the Battle of the Fs. Coming at the Europa Park Stadion. Freiburg and the Julian Schuster sit 8th right now with 8 points, and they are winless. Actually, unbeaten in the last 6. Freiburg looking A-OK. Up against the Frankfurt side of the Dino Topmol, who are 7th with 9 points and only won twice in the last 6 matches. Now, coming into this, Freiburg are on the back of that 0-0 scoreline away to Mönchengladbach to make it 3 draws on the spin for them, including draws when they last played at home to Hoffenheim. Standing in the way, though, is Frankfurt, who did lose to Bayern most recently to make it back-to-back defeats. In fact, conceding 8 goals in the last 2 games combined for Frankfurt, both in the Champions League and the Bundesliga heading into this. Now, they played 47 times since 1993. 15 wins for Freiburg, 20 wins for Frankfurt. There's been 12 draws between the two sides. They last played over at Freiburg. It was a 3-1 win for Frankfurt back in May 2025. Frankfurt did the double over Freiburg last season, and of course, quite convincingly as well, scoring 7 goals in the 2 games combined. Bookies, what do you think on this match coming at you this coming Sunday?
Meanwhile, Freiburg, Freiburg reaction, 8-5 for them, 13-8 Frankfurt, out of sorts Frankfurt. We got 12-5 is the draw. It's a tricky one to come following on from Die Klassiker there.
Alrighty, of course, this one's a tight one to call, but I think Frankfurt will lose this. Freiburg can be a tricky wicket, of course. They've both got European competitions also to consider at the end of this week. So busy week for both of these two sides in the Bundesliga. And then finally we go to St. Pauli as they take on Hoffenheim on the 19th of October. This is at the Millantor Stadion. St. Pauli under Alexander Blazer now 10th with 7 points, 3 defeats on the spin. Up against the Hoffenheim side, Christian Ilsner, just 1 win in the last 5. They were 11th with also 7 points coming at you this coming match. St. Pauli did lose to Bremen most recently. That was on the road. The last home match was a 2-1 loss to Leverkusen. As for their opposition, Hoffenheim losing to Köln at home. Their last away match was a cheeky 1-1 draw against Freiburg. Now, coming into this, they have played 7 times since 2007. 3 wins for St. Pauli, 2 wins for Hoffenheim. There's been 2 draws between the two sides. They last played at this venue. It was a 2-0 win for St. Pauli, who did the double over Hoffenheim last season. Back-to-back wins, back-to-back clean sheets, and competitively unbeaten against Hoffenheim over the last 3 matches.
Then on Sonntag, we got St. Pauli 16-11. Okay, and we got 9-5 is your Hoffenheim. Not been good this season either. 12-5 is the draw. Dirk, I'm going to leave that to you, and I'll see you soon next week.
Tricky one to end this one, of course. I'm going to go with a 1-0 win for St. Pauli, of course, which would leapfrog them or at least extend their lead over Hoffenheim in the Bundesliga table. And that, my friends, completes my match number 7 predictions over in the Bundesliga. And if I'm right, Bayern München will remain top of the pops, with Leipzig now in 2nd spot, Dortmund in 3rd, and Bayern in 4th. Going down, Heidenheim and Mainz, and my boys Mönchengladbach still in hot water, of course. And that, my friends, completes it today. Make sure you smash the like on your way out and hit the subscribe if you're new. And please, please, please drop your own predictions down in the comments section so we can review those and maybe even showcase you them next time around as we head into match number 8 over in the Bundesliga. But until then, subscribe, smash the like. I'll catch you later. We're done.